the question that we've got here today is how much leverage do we want to end up with this Smurf property transaction that you've undertaken? And so what we'll do, we'll identify what the issue would have been had you purchased retail, and then we'll look at the wholesale version, and that will transition into answering the question, okay? Right. So the property that you're looking at purchasing has got a retail, or an extra bank now, because we've got a bank value on this now. So we've got a bank value of 550,000. And if we're going to be purchasing that in a normal way, then let's add on stamp duty. And for the purpose of this discussion, to be honest with you, I've got no idea what the stamp duty is, 550, because I don't have the figures with me, but let's just call it, call it 15,000, for example. Legals, let's just say, 5K. Borrowing costs, let's just call it a couple of K. This is just indicative figures that we're trying to talk, okay? Right, so we've got 550, 565, 570, that's 572. Okay, alright, so the deposit that would have been required, given that this is a bank vow, in your case, the bank happy to lend 75%. So we've got 550 times by 0.75. So I've got a figure of 412. So less 412. That's the loan. That's 75%. Okay. So we've got a balance there of 160 as a deposit. Cool? Right. That would have been the scenario that would be applicable had you bought this property at normal retail. Okay. Alright, so let's identify a couple of problems. The problem number one is that this $160,000 deposit is stuck inside the property, because that's just the nature of the beast. You pay a deposit, it's there. The second problem is that as this property goes up in value, let's just humour me for a moment, let's just say it goes up to $1 million, for example. You want to buy your next property. The problem is that you can't access the equity, right? So can't.
Why can't you access it?
Because under the legislation, as that goes up in value, a super fund cannot access equity.
Oh, okay, so.
To, like, in the normal way we could, with a line of credit.
Yep.
Not happy, okay? So can't access the equity.
Okay, in a super
Major, within a super fund purchase.
Yeah.
What that means is problem number 3, your growth of your assets is stifled.
Yeah, stagnant. Yeah.
That's it. Stifled, stagnant. So in other words, the traditional negative gearing or leveraging concepts in a Smurf does not work in the normal way that it would had we purchased this property in our own name, partnership, trust, company.
Yeah, outside of super.
So anything outside of Smurf, the traditional leveraging techniques work. Thumbs up, happy days. But in this case here with the Smurf transaction, doesn't work, okay? So this is called, we call this for a title, Smurf borrowing. Sadly at the moment, 99% of our profession, the tax accounting profession, the financial planning, finance broking, are creating transactions like this. But they're not letting you aware, they're not bringing to your awareness these major issues here. It's a major issue. So all your expectations that are normally associated with traditional borrowing do not exist in the Smurf world. And the purpose of this presentation here, and the reason why we're recording it, is one, to remind you of why you've gone down the wholesale pathway and steered away from this one here. Each of you are, in your 40s, and this would be your last Smurf transaction for another 15 years had you gone down this pathway. Okay?
Yeah.
That's why you are not going down this normal
Unless
track.
you're 20 something or whatever.
Yeah.
Even regardless.
Even that, yeah, that's
Even
right.
regardless, the bottom line is, when that goes up in value, you cannot access that equity.
Yeah.
It's not going to happen. So what it means is that we've got another cost, haven't we? Another cost is called,
Opportunity cost.
very good, opportunity cost. You're
Oh.
learning. No.
It's always in the back of my mind
Yeah.
about any investment.
Exactly, opportunity cost.
Exactly.
So what is opportunity cost? How would you define opportunity cost?
Well, you've got something but you cannot do anything with it, so any opportunities come to you, you're just holding this baby here but you can't make it grow or you can't make it do anything much except...
That's it. You
Except
can't
what it
use
is.
it.
Exactly.
What you don't use, you lose. That's what you're saying?
Yeah, if you don't
So-
use it, you lose it.
That's it.
You...
No, it is. It's good. No, this is important.
Yeah, no, it's...
Because there is going to be, I'm hoping there's going to be another 100,000 tax accountants, 200,000 financial planners, 300,000 finance brokers who actually get to actually watch this video.
Yeah,
Yeah?
yeah.
So, very, very important. Okay, so the opportunity cost is measurable, but without getting too pedantic and anal. Let's just, we could work out what the opportunity cost is. And we could easily do it by the number of properties that we can't purchase as a result of this,
Yes, because
and
you can't
work out
access-
an indicative capital gain. So let's just call it 500,000 over the next 10 years, for example.
Right.
We could leave that to another video to actually work out what that opportunity cost would be. But let's just call it, the outcome, the symptom, is that it will threaten your lifestyle in the future.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay?
Yes.
So,
Well, there's no...
without getting too dramatic, let's just call it asset threatening, if you want, asset growth threatening. Asset
Growth threat.
growth threat.
Yeah.
Okay? Which, obviously, all these add up to massive problems.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because all your expectations are not delivered.
Yeah, because you're not really growing your super fund.
No.
No, this is a fantastic concept, but not in a Smurf world.
Yeah.
Period.
Exactly.
It's irrefutable. Okay, so let's look. So this is the Smurf
Retail.
buying in a
Retail.
traditional,
Retail environment.
yeah, traditional retail process. Okay, let's look at now what you've actually done. Okay, what you've done, you've entered into an environment to become, or your Smurf to become a property developer. Now, as from October 2010, the OTO gave the green light to Smurf to be in the business of property development. Sadly, cannot borrow, but that's okay. The process that you've entered into ticks all the boxes. But what's the outcome? The outcome is this, that under current legislation, in regard to the stamp duty, there will be no stamp duty in your transaction. The legal costs will be about the same. The borrowing costs will be about the same. But your purchase price, in your case, is $475,000. So let's now add up the costs. So we've got 475, 480, 482. 482. Now, the bank vow is not going to change, so the bank are quite happy to lend at 412. Yeah. So now we've got 70. Alright. So in other words, if you wanted to, you are able to still borrow the same amount of money, despite that your purchase price is less, is irrelevant, what the bank are lending you for 412, if you want to, is based on that particular bank vow. Okay? So in other words, the amount that we've got inside the super fund Now, at the moment, we've used 75%. And so what we will do is we'll calculate what amount of leveraging we want to have for this one, because you don't have to borrow. I mean, you could, maybe we could borrow more, but the bank is quite happy with 75% at the moment. So basically at the moment, what we've got here is that we've got the amount that's left in the super fund. If we were given this ratio, the LVR ratio of 75%, you'll have 70,000 left in the super fund, which will be by choice. But at least it's not 160.
Mm-hmm.
That's a massive drop. So obviously we've got, there's $90,000 less there, which is a great kickstart. And of course, the same issue applies here, but you can't exit equity, that's correct. But the growth of assets now is actually not stifled. It's not stifled because we've got $90,000 in the super fund that we can do something with.
Oh, like sitting in the super fund, not in the actual property.
Exactly, that's going to be, so if we go through this, if we stick with this LVR ratio here,
Yeah.
then we will leave $70,000 in the super fund. If, for example, we can get the bank to go up to 80%, and let's have a look what that calculation would be. So we've got 550 times 5.8, so it's 440. So in round figures, it would be an extra, say, 30,000, which means we'd only leave, say, 40,000 in the super, 120 to play with or use. Reinvest, yeah. So that's the difference between wholesale, Smurf borrowing.
Could you just explain that little box with the cross again, like the symbol?
Yeah, that's right, yeah. So what we're saying here is that in a normal environment where we're using traditional borrowing techniques, we know that we're going to stifle our asset growth because this money here is stuck in the property.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas over this side here, for example, that's not, that
Applicable.
it's
Not applicable.
yeah, it's not applicable because now, for example,
We've actually taken the how should I say, some of that.
the money that would have been tied up in here
Yeah,
is now being released because our purchase.
being released. Yeah,
Yeah.
released. Okay. Yeah,
Because
released.
we've actually purchased at the wholesale, or what we call wholesale.
So when we take that when we release that what do you call it? That portion,
Mhm.
is it released back into your Smurf
Correct.
fund, CMA
That goes straight into the bank account.
bank account?
That's right. That's correct.
Okay, so that's released on this put.
So the target, if we want to get rid of this problem here, as far as current equity and stifling of growth, the only way we can do that is go for a maximum LVR, right? To release that, to get that cash released, that would ordinarily be stuck here in the retail environment. You cool with that?
Yeah, but there's also considerations when you're trying to release that large a portion. You got to look at the return on the investment. So in other words, the rent and all that is not going to cover the repayments. Then
That's another issue. Well, that we will talk about that.
that
You're
is my
quite
other
correct.
question.
That's correct. Yeah. So the bottom line in this here, let's just break it down into
Steps.
micro components.
Okay,
Is that this 120,000 can now be used?
Yeah.
That is the issue.
Okay. Yeah.
So,
So
are
it's
we all
more
okay with that?
flexibility. Yeah, so it's more flexibility on how you use that.
Well, there's
Yeah.
growth. You
Yeah.
can grow your portfolio.
So the bottom line is that now our opportunity cost has been reduced, hasn't it? So that's all.
It's open that up.
Yeah, exactly. So in regard
That's
to
it. So
a threat, it's not a threat.
no, you put a
Using
tick there. No, it's because you
Oh,
open it up.
okay. Well, all right. We'll open it up.
We've opened up the opportunity costs.
Right. Okay. So if we put a cross against these ones here,
Yeah. But we've opened up those
now we can
2,
put a
3, and
tick.
4.
In fact, all of them.
Yeah.
All the boxes are ticked now. So I'm hoping that this particular actual live consultation in identifying the problem with purchasing
Retail versus wholesale.
retail property, which is how 99% of transactions are done to this day, that in the Smurf world it does not work, period. It's a disastrous outcome. So if you're considering purchasing a property retail, using the traditional buy techniques in Smurf, it will not work.
Yeah,
Don't do it in a Smurf. Own name, cool, happy days. Why? Because you can access your equity as it goes up in value. So the only way to actually purchase a property in a Smurf using traditional borrowing is to only buy at wholesale. Period. End of discussion.